we were talking so far about the young adulthood of Savitri and the fact that she's growing up into somebody who nobody wants to come close to because she's so great. Or even if they come close to her, they encounter only a part of her existence, so to say. And from there we move to the way in which she encounters Satyavan. But instead of looking at the canto in which that happens, I'd like to take us back to the day that Satyavan will die. And that is Canto 1. This is how Savitri begins as a book. It begins with the canto called The Symbol Dawn, which is the dawn of the day that Satyavan will die. And what happens that day is that Savitri wakes up and she recollects her past. This is a kind of a yogic thing, because it's as if she's going to be born again. And every birth, in fact, every death is really preceded by a recollection of the entire life. It's as if in one flash you see the whole life. And if you recollect the image that I used to announce this workshop, if some of you have seen that, that's a painting by Huta about this day. And it shows Savitri in meditation with a number of pictures above her head. This is her recollecting her life, the principal episodes. And so what happens, whether it happens naturally just before one dies, or yogically at various important points in one's life, when something significant is about to happen, there is a recollection of the life. It's as if special moments of your past, when the psychic was close to the surface, emerge, and you see them all together. You see the thread that combines them. You see them as one image. And this is what's happening to Savitri on the day that Satyavan will die. She wakes up and she recollects her past. And Sri Aurobindo is recounting that in the first two cantos. And this is the second canto. And we start with page 14 there. She's recollecting the fact of the day she'll meet Satyavan. Here with the suddenness divine advents have, and again this term divine advent is really to be seen in so many ways. Her life itself is a divine advent. That's the Shakti avatar. But a divine advent happens in our lives as well. In every life, there are particular moments when something really special happens. And that's what he's talking about. Here with the suddenness, there's a suddenness, there's something abrupt. There's a unprecedented nature, an eruption of some kind, that a sudden advent, a divine advent happens. Here with the suddenness divine advents have, repeating the marvel of the first descent. Again, it's the repetition of these advents that go back to the image of an advent that begins the entire cycle of creation. Repeating the marvel of the first descent, changing to rapture the dull earthly round, love came to her, hiding the shadow death. So this is the whole essence of Savitri is contained in those few lines. A divine advent is taking place. Her own life is a divine advent. And the divine advent that takes place in her life, which launches her into her destiny, as it were, is the double presence of life and death. Love and death. Love came to her hiding the shadow death. Love comes to her, but death is hardly any distance behind. And his use of the term shadow too is really conspicuous here. In fact, there's an interesting conversation. I was told that Astor Patel's father, Indra Sen, who was in fact, he was one of the few people that C.G. Jung met when he was in India. And Astor's father used to talk to Sri Aurobindo about Jung. And he told him about Jung's idea of the shadow. And Sri Aurobindo affirmed it. He said that the shadow is a truth that all yogis know about. It's a truth in yoga. And in a sense, you have to read this line in that light. Love came to her hiding the shadow death. Death is the shadow of life. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine. This he here is love. Love, the mother has talked about this. Love is a great divine force that's unhoused on earth, that moves from person to person looking for a perfect manifestation and is never satisfied. Because humanity doesn't have as yet the purity to really house love. Only some aspects of love can manifest. The purity of love, the mother says, if even a drop of pure love was to enter into somebody, if he was not prepared, he'd be shattered. So this is the Godhead of love. And Sri Aurobindo is saying that Savitri is the perfect receptacle for that power. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine. Since first the earth being's heavenward growth began, through all the long ordeal of the race, never a rarer creature bore his shaft. The shaft, I feel he's thinking about the image of Kamdev, who shoots arrows, or Cupid, who shoots arrows. The shaft of the arrow that actually stings, but in a way, to that person who can bear it, brings something divine. Never a rarer creature bore his shaft, the burning test of the Godhead in our parts. A lightning from the heights on our abyss. So this is how he's describing love. And, the divinity of love, the divine power of love, that is too powerful, as it were, for humanity, but prepares us. It's making us into something which needs to be capable of housing it. All in her pointed to a nobler kind. And then this long passage, which I will read, just like the passage when Ashwapati has a visitation of the Divine Mother, which is one of the most glorious passages. We read that last time. This is equivalent to that. Another one of those really mantric descriptions of the Divine Mother. Near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven, exalted and swift, her young, large-visioned spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. Ardent was her self-poised, unstumbling will. Her mind, a sea of white sincerity, passionate in flow, had not one turbid wave. As in a mystic and dynamic dance, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity, or golden temple door to things beyond. So this is a description of how the inner being of Savitri is a fit receptacle for the Godhead of love. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-bound steps. So you see that particularly this part, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault. Okay, even before that, as in a mystic and dynamic dance, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods. So this is almost the entranced life of Savitri. It's like a dance. Her every movement is being controlled from truth's revealing vault. In other words, you see Sri Aurobindo talks about the two realities, the geocentric reality and the heliocentric reality. The heliocentric reality is the supramental realm, the realm of the sun. And the geocentric reality is our reality of dualities, good and bad, birth and death, all the dualities that we live. And to connect the two, to build the axis mundi that reaches from the earth to the sun, that's the job of Savitri. That's what she's come to do. And her origin is there, and that's her, just like Sri Aurobindo is saying, that we have to, in our yoga, rise to a point where the consciousness is no longer even situated in the body, but is in the 1,000-petaled lotus above the body. In this case, it's even beyond that. It's in the solar origin. And from there, it's controlling all the chakras. The body is like a dance, the movements of an entranced dancer that's being controlled from the solar center. That's how she is. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. There is a certain perfection of movement, and this has to be understood not only physically, but these rhythms. These rhythms are rhythms of speech, rhythms of thought, rhythms of will. They're all following the rhythms that are coming from there. And in fact, even this term rhythm, which in Sanskrit is called chanda, in its Indo-European origin is related to the word rhythm, which really means also right. The right and the perfect rhythm in time, how things move and how they are interconnected so that everything happens at the right time. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. Her look, her smile awoke celestial sense. Even in earth stuff and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. So these lines again, particularly these kind of lines, her look, her smile awoke celestial sense. even in earth stuff and their intense delight, poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. So, one of the earliest books that I read about Sri Aurobindo and the mother was Dilip Kumar Roy's book, Among the Great. And there he quotes this passage. And he quotes this passage in the light of his first encounter with the mother. And particularly those two lines. He says that there was a luster that flowed out from her. There was a light that flowed out from her. And there was a content of bliss that even if you came close to her, you felt the intensity, the whole charge of the atmosphere, and this happiness that just flowed around her. Her look, her smile, he quotes these lines, her look, her smile awoke celestial sense. Even in earth stuff and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet temperate sun, her high passion a blue heaven's equipoise. So you get this sense, what we have been told in the previous lines is now being repeated in a way, in a more compact form. You're being given an image of that sums up, as it were, all that she was being described as before. It's a single summary of that in terms of the image of who she is. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered breast, in a haven of safety and splendid soft repose, one could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and preen joy in her warmth and colors rule. So there's this bird image. It's an extended simile of a bird, this bird that is escaping from a world of storms with its tired wings and finding a place of rest, as if this is the nature of our lives, and we can find this haven of safety and sweet repose. Recover the lost habit of happiness. This is such a beautiful line. It tells us that somewhere inside us we know that our natural condition is bliss, is happiness. And yet we've lost it. And when we regain it, it's like recognizing that this is a natural thing, that this is like a habit of happiness. And yet it's lost habit of happiness. A deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. The great unsatisfied Godhead here could dwell, vacant of the dwarf self's imprisoned air. Her mood could harbor his sublimer breath, spiritual, that can make all things divine. For even her gulfs were secrecies of light, At once she was the stillness and the word, a continent of self-diffusing peace, an ocean of untrembling virgin fire. The strength, the silence of the gods were hers. In her he found a vastness like his own. His high, warm, subtle ether he refound and moved in her as in his natural home. In her he met his own eternity. He here is the Godhead love. So, love is like Savitri, a descended power, a power that belongs to the supermind, but that has come here to manifest itself. But it's a disembodied power. It's looking for a perfect embodied house. And this is the house that it finds, and finds something native to its own reality. And in this sense, again, when we are talking about Shakti avatar, this is how Sri Aurobindo builds Savitri as a Shakti avatar. Because as the mother says, when we are talking about power, the greatest power is love. The greatest power is love. Love is the greatest power. Even a drop of pure love is more powerful than any other power.
I can't escape the feeling that he's describing his own relationship with the mother.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, this is him saying,
Very
this
true.
is what I found in her.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because even the description of love that he gives over there, you see, in her he found a vastness like his own.
Yeah.
His high, warm, subtle ether he refound and moved in her as in his natural home. Yes, Margaret.
You may be able to talk about this timeline, but I think it might have been around the time the mother came for the last time. There's a moment when she talks about Sri Aurobindo and she recognizing that they have the same vision of the yoga and also that it's going to be completed.
Yeah.
And I was feeling this earlier when you were talking about, the auspicious time and that event. It kind of ties into what you guys were saying, that they saw in each other's vastness
Yeah.
and the completion of the yoga mission.
Yeah, I don't know if it was this, the second time that she finally came or the first time she came. I'm not sure. I think it's the first time. Because the way she puts it is that she saw these words that she had herself known about.
When I saw him, I saw them.
Yeah, that these words that she herself had seen, she saw them close to him, around him. And she said, I asked him just this question, without any prelude, as it were. Are these things to be? This is what she asked. And this account comes from both of them in two separate places. And Sri Aurobindo said yes. And he gives this as an example of the power of the disciple. He says that the mother asked this question. In asking this question, she made these words descend. She said she asked these questions and the words descended. And he was made to say yes.
There was another different time that I'm thinking of where she said they were standing looking at
Yeah, right.
and
Right.
her head wasn't on
Yeah,
her shoulder,
yeah,
but it was
yeah.
like
Yeah,
that.
correct.
And that's what, there was that other part of, not only they knew
Yeah,
that they were of one,
yeah.
but they knew the mission would be fulfilled.
That's right. I think that is around the second time, yeah. I've read that one as well.
Asking and the words descended, so
Yeah.
that reminded me of those two movements
The call from below
Yeah.
and
the descent from
descent
above,
from
yeah, the grace that descends.
Should we report that in the agenda? Is that where that is?
Yeah. That's there in the agenda, but that's also Sri Aurobindo speaks about this. I think in his conversations with Dilip Roy, he speaks about this as the power of the disciple.
one last thing, Charles was talking about the lives of Sri Aurobindo. There's some, I want to say this, in that book there's a little more of the personalities of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, but also in their transcendent roles. But for those of us that didn't have the lore, that book gave us a little more access to their relationship.
Yeah.
And there, instead of it being...
Which book are you talking
This
about?
is the Peter
Peter
Hughes.
Hughes.
Okay.
So for those of us that, again, weren't privy to the actual events or even the discussion of them, there was something so personal in the, I would say it this way, the love that they had for one another.
Yeah.
And that was really, I haven't, you guys know more about where that was maybe talked about, but it was definitely repeated in that book.
Yeah.
And it was so nice for us to, like that she would come and feed him at night, or,
It's there also in Nirod Paran's
it's
book.
in your,
Yeah, it's in some of Champaklal's
Okay.
books.
So there's more than one place
Yeah.
to get. But it makes what you're reading so deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is her recollecting that moment, and the kind of way in which that divine advent is really. I mean, here it's not even being talked about as her meeting Satyavan.
Right.
It's being talked about as her getting ready to receive the Godhead of love. And what happens as a result? Okay, and in the inner movement, right? The impunity of unborn mites was hers. Although she leaned to bear the human load, her walk kept still the measure of the gods. Earth's breath had failed to stain that brilliant class. Unsmeared with the dust of our mortal atmosphere, it still reflected heaven's spiritual joy. Almost they saw who lived within her light, her playmate in the sempiternal spheres, descended from its unattainable realms in her attracting Advent's luminous wake, the white fire dragon bird of endless bliss, drifting with burning wings above her days. So this is an occult friend, you may say, of this being, of Savitri, who has come with her, as it were. It's interesting, this can be compared to, there's a sonnet written by Sri Aurobindo called Bird of Fire. And so this is a real bird. This is a certain kind of a occult bird that comes from the Ananda plains, the plains of delight, bliss, that comes with Savitri, and also is something that Sri Aurobindo has encountered and talks about in this poem. Heaven's tranquil shield guarded the mission child. So this is the earlier part before, you see, this, what I'm reading now is a prelude. It's almost like this recollection goes back and forward. So this event that happens with the descent of love, mind you, it's the descent of love hiding its shadow death. And in that event, there's also a looking back at a simpler life, a life of before this happened. Before this happened, she was guarded, she was protected. Heaven's tranquil shield guarded the mission child. A glowing orbit was her early term. Years like gold raiment of the gods that pass. Her youth sat throned in calm felicity. But joy cannot endure until the end. There is a darkness in terrestrial things. This is a little like that uneasiness that stirs in the human, you see. On the earth, there's something afoot, there's something dark. There is a darkness in terrestrial things that will not suffer long too glad a note. On her too closed the inescapable hand. The armed immortal bore the snare of time. Time snares us. One dealt with her who meets the burdened great, a signer of the ordeal and the path. This is almost another kind of another way of talking about yoga. Sri Aurobindo, throughout the record, he talks about the master of the works. Actually, the master of the works is really the way in which he refers to it in the synthesis of yoga when he's talking about the yoga of works. So here too, it's the master of the yoga. Basically, he's the one who assigns the yoga, and this assigning of the yoga is also in a way an ordeal. See? Assigner of the ordeal and the path, who chooses in this holocaust of the soul death, fall, and sorrow as the spirit's goads. The dubious Godhead with his torch of pain lit up the chasm of the unfinished world and called her to fill with her vast self the abyss. Here, just now we are told about the vastness of a self that can house the vastness of the Godhead of love. And now the shadow of love is calling that same vastness to fill the abyss of the unfinished world. Called her to fill with a vast self the abyss, lit up the chasm of the unfinished world. In other words, whatever is not complete, whatever is unsatisfactory, whatever is this darkness that will not harbor too glad a note, right? That tremendous unfulfillment, this vastness is a chasm that is lit up by the torch of this particular Godhead, and she's asked to fill it with herself. August and pitiless in his calm outlook, heightening the Eternal's dreadful strategy, he measured the difficulty with the might and dug more deep the gulf that all must cross. Assailing her divinest elements, he made her heart kin to the striving human heart and forced her strength to its appointed road. For this she had accepted mortal breath. Again, we come back to the avatar, Shakti avatar. Why is she here? This is the very reason she is here. Just as love is this unsatisfied Godhead that doesn't have a perfect home here, death too is that another form of unsatisfied Godhead who wants its own perfection, wants immortality. And she is the person who can achieve it. So death is intensely interested in her, in forcing her to confront his own challenge.
But isn't death love's shadow?
Yeah, that's how he's pointing out. Death is love's shadow, And death actually is another face of the sun god, which is what will happen at the end. In fact, Yama, which is the Indian name for death, Yama also means controller. Yama Niyama, to control. So Yama is a name of the sun god that takes this kind of, the shadow reality to force us to overcome it, so to say. For this she had accepted mortal birth to wrestle with the shadow she had come, and must confront the riddle of man's birth and life's brief struggle in dumb matter's night, whether to bear with ignorance and death or hew the ways of immortality. To win or lose the godlike game for man was her soul's issue thrown with destiny's dice. This is the very meaning of her existence. It's a dice game to win or lose against this ultimate adversary, see, the inconscient, that which hides the truth of reality.
This is slightly metaphysical, but I'm just thinking that the way we understand dice with the mind, it's in terms of probabilities. And this way it's a little different, like as if it has a load. It's always loaded,
Yeah. It is, you are right, it is loaded, but at the same time, it's almost like an even, it is an even chance. So it's because this is the thing that the creation is something in which God gives equal weight or reality to refuse. That's the duality that takes place. So this is the fallen gods. What Sri Aurobindo talks, or Mother talks about the four archangels. These four archangels that become their opposites. Once they become their opposites, each one of them has a reality outside the opposites, where the opposites are, as it were, transcended. But once they become the opposites, the playing field in which the opposites are churning, as it were, are going against each other, neither has an advantage over the other.
in themselves.
In themselves.
There's something else.
With something else. That's why from beyond them, that power can come. That for that it is loaded. But what is given to it, as it were, is this dice that it has to make. I think it has to reveal the weight.
It is equal only when you don't see the something else.
Yeah.
Means the mind which doesn't see.
Yeah. Exactly. This dice game, it's so evocative. Actually, in the rest of the image is brought up again. You think about the Mahabharata, which is also hinging on this dice game, right? Mm-hmm. The whole of the Mahabharata is really a dice game in a sense, because dharma in the Mahabharata is up for grabs. All the laws are confused, and it's really a dice game. And in this dice game, it's as if the evil is winning, because they know how to play the dice. Right? Similarly, the dice as an image is also evoked by Nietzsche, who's talking about the eternal return in terms of the dice game. He's saying if we are to lead a real authentic life, every moment, all of it's like a dice game. Something is thrown for you to, kind of respond to. And he says, all of us, just like this, recollecting all of the life, we have to take it and throw it to the table of the gods. The dice is thrown from our table to the table of the gods, and what comes back to us, we have to accept fully. And in that acceptance lies our ability to really affirm the eternal return of the divine.
That's the surrender.
That's the surrender, the complete surrender, which the whole comes back.
So contrary to what Einstein said, God is playing dice with the universe.
The universe is playing dice with God.
He said that God does not play dice.
Yeah, it's
Right.
contrary to that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you raised it though, because I was having the same around the dice thing. So it was nice that you elaborated it.
And the next lines are also very powerful. But not to submit and suffer was she born. This is the Shakti avatar, right? That's, I think, one of the key things that the mother says. At the bottom, everything is a matter of power. The mother does not accept any determinism. If you think things are determined, you don't have enough power. That's the whole reality of Shakti. That we are here to overcome the last, thing that will stop us. That will create the conditions that seem to be impossible.
Power, but ironically, it feels to me like faith is also an aspect of that, where you could see faith as part of determinism, but I see it as part of anything is possible, not.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, what is power? That's why we are saying that power, ultimately, psychic power is the greatest power. That's why love is the greatest power. Faith is a psychic power. These things are active things, They're not. They're not determinism in that sense. Yeah.
Let's do one more. Sorry to
Yeah.
Again, the Western metaphysics brings this notion that freedom is ultimately inner necessity.
Say again, Kate.
Freedom is ultimately inner necessity.
Yeah, this is a paradox, but true, absolutely. What is freedom? Freedom, it's like that in that Isha Upanishad, right? It's connecting with the image of the inevitable. Connecting with the inevitable is freedom. You feel most free when you feel you've done something which is just right, which means that there is already an image that you connected with. That is the true thing to be done at that point. You feel free because you expressed that creative choice that is the creativity of God Himself. But not to submit and suffer was she born. To lead, to deliver was her glorious part. Here was no fabric of terrestrial make, fit for a day's use by busy, careless powers. An image fluttering on the screen of fate, half animated for a passing show, or a castaway on the ocean of desire, flung to the eddies in a ruthless sport and tossed along the gulfs of circumstance, a creature born to bend beneath the yoke, a chattel and a plaything of time's lords. This is the image of ordinary life. This is how all our lives, this is Sri Aurobindo's vision on what is the nature of human life. And her life is not like that because she has come to challenge that. See? It's worth reading again. But not to submit and suffer was she born, to lead and deliver was her glorious part. Here was no fabric of terrestrial make fit for a day's use by busy, careless powers. An image fluttering on the screen of fate, half animated for a passing show. It's like, like these insects. And it's as if its life is just a passing show, and whatever we see of its life is for the entertainment of that show. Somebody's entertainment. Right?
This is where though I was like, it's when you said throw the dice, because it's like, yeah, but Savitri is way better than a 50-50 bet.
Right.
What is somebody's entertainment here?
Our lives. It's interesting, the Upanishads, they say that, that there's a part in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad where it says that if you look for the Brahman, the gods are jealous of you because you are the gods' cattle. In other words, from a certain point of view, the gods over here are the established powers, the powers that seem to be inevitable, determined, see? And we are following those laws. In that sense, we are the cattle. A cattle follows the laws of its master. And that master wants the cattle to continue following the flock. Because otherwise, its Garden of Eden is going to break down.
Yeah.
See? So that's the reason why, from a certain point of view, they are enjoying our condition.
Struggle.
Yeah, our struggle and our condition. So,
Then, may I ask one more
yeah,
question?
yeah.
That is, this God, though they are in connection with the truth, but they may not necessarily house the integral
Yeah.
as humans do.
Yeah,
Potentially.
right.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. They don't house the integral. And also, gods, of course, there's the whole hierarchy of gods, depending on what station or what level the gods are on. When we are talking about the gods being jealous of, humans because they think that they're their cattle, we are talking about gods as more inferior powers, inferior gods who maintain the law. And those kind of gods, we may think of them as vital gods, maybe. But in the Puranas are full of those type of descriptions of gods, certain descriptions of
Or
gods.
even over-mental gods?
Over-mental gods too, to a certain extent, yeah. So here, he's using that kind of imagery. He's saying a chattel and a plaything of time's lords. Right? Or one more pawn who comes destined to be pushed one slow move forward on a measureless board in the chess play of the earth soul with doom. So he is moving from the dice to the chess game now.
But I remember Mother talking about them being jealous of us because they're not evolutionary. They
Yeah.
don't have any choice. Their reality is
yeah,
fixed.
yeah.
And we,
Yeah, that's the same thing that Keka was saying. Yeah.
And can we suffer, Dasha?
Pardon?
Can God suffer?
No, the gods can't suffer because, in a way, suffering is also a result of the evolution. You see, we are struggling. Struggle is the basis of suffering. We have to struggle to evolve. I'm jumping to page 19. A force in her that toiled since earth was made, accomplishing in life the great world plan, pursuing after death immortal aims, repugned to admit frustration's barren role, forfeit the meaning of a birth in time, obey the government of the casual fact, or yield her high destiny up to passing chance. So, here the mother has said, whenever there was something to be manifest, something of consciousness to be manifest, I was there. And that's what he's referring, a force in her that toiled since earth was made. This is that struggle, the suffering, that, every step is contested. That's the very meaning of evolution. And we find that right from the level of the inconscience that is trying to harbor life, the most simple life forms. And it's all a contest for immortality, because these are all forms of immortality. Something can live, but live just for a very short amount of time, then it's gone. Then you have certain things that live for a day. But even in living for a day, they produce a progeny and thereby experience a certain kind of immortality of the race. And then you have a struggle that goes further and wants to actually have persistence and does not even accept the span of life that it's given. Moreover, it wants to spread across the earth and establish civilizations, establish history. These are all forms of immortality. And that's the reason why that's the essence of the struggle. The struggle is the struggle for immortality, ultimately. Immortality of consciousness. Immortality, not just a physical immortality, but immortality as the native property of divinity. So she is the essence, she is the embodiment of that. That's why that's the force. A force in her that toiled since earth was made, accomplishing in life the great world plan, pursuing after death immortal aims, repugned to admit frustration's barren road. She refuses to admit frustration's barren role, forfeit the meaning of a birth in time, obey the government of the casual fact, or yield her high destiny up to passing chance. In her own self she found her high recourse. It's nowhere else, it's in you. In her own self she found her high recourse. She matched with the iron law her sovereign right. Her single will opposed the cosmic rule. It's not just, the problem is not just an individual problem, it's a cosmic problem. Ultimately, we have to challenge not just the circumstances of individual life, but circumstances of cosmic life. And for that, yoga is necessary, because one has to become equal to the cosmic power. One has to identify with the cosmic being to challenge the cosmic limitations. A single will opposed the cosmic rule. To stay the wheels of doom, this greatness rose. At the unseen's knock upon the hidden gates, her strength made greater by the lightning's touch, awoke from slumber in her heart's recess. It bore the stroke of that which kills and saves. Across the awful march no eye can see, barring its dreadful route no will can change, she faced the engines of the universe. A heart stood in the way of the driving wheels. Its giant workings paused in front of a mind. Its stark conventions met the flame of a soul. A magic leverage suddenly is caught that moves the veiled ineffable's timeless will. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to a transcendent force. Then miracle is made the common rule. One mighty deed can change the course of things. A lonely thought become omnipotent. So here, this is a very powerful passage, and particularly that where that change takes place, where she really stands, becomes cosmic, and stands against the cosmic powers. Then Sri Aurobindo, that's how Savitri runs. He'll describe something and then he'll suddenly give this universal statement, right? Which is a teaching. That's why Savitri is a prophecy, it's a legend or description, it's a symbol, it's also a teaching. So these passages of teaching which reveal something that we can all learn from is when at that point he says, a magic leverage suddenly is caught that moves the veiled ineffable's timeless will. There is a higher leverage. It's like a machinery. You've got the machine at another point where its mechanism is, sort of determining a lower determinism. You've got a higher, the mother uses this term, a higher determinism. You've got it at a higher determinism. A magic leverage suddenly is caught that moves the veiled ineffable's timeless will. This leverage is the will of the divine. It's almost like it connects with this higher will of the divine and becomes a creative force.
So, just one question regarding this. So this lever actually is in time, but it has some kind of paradoxical connection
With that which is outside time. Exactly. That moves the veiled ineffable's timeless will. The leverage moves the timeless will. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to a transcendent force. So this is, I think, really, really powerful, this part where, if there is an aspiration, a vision, a wish to become an instrument or achieve this kind of power, suddenly one can have a aspiration that is responded to by a transcendent force. Can link man's strength to a transcendent force. It's like suddenly there's a response. A cosmic or a divine power catches hold of you. You called out, you were just human, but a moment's call put you in contact with a God. And somebody caught hold of you, caught hold of your force, caught hold of your prayer. And you're no longer who you were. Then miracle is made the common rule. One mighty deed can change the course of things. A lonely thought become omnipotent.
I think we've seen these lines on the ashram calendars.
Yeah. So I think particularly these lines, I think we can spend a moment meditating, because our own aspiration, if we aspire, if we call on it, we are also being watched by the gods. These forces are not just human. It's not only in our interest, it's in the interest of the divine. And just like he's talking about, love is looking for instruments. These transcendent forces are looking for instruments. And if we call on it, it will use us. It will make us into its instrument. It will link us with its transcendent force.
This image of liver is very potent, I feel.
Yeah.
This liver is the thing where you can apply force at one
Yeah.
point and get the load
At another point.
point.
Yes.
Yeah.
A magic leverage suddenly is caught. You catch this invisible lever, right? That normally you can't see, but it's an occult lever that connects time to the timeless and flips the equation, brings you into contact with the will of the Supreme. So we find that Savitri undergoes these changes, and this is actually, in a sense, the day before Satyavan is going to die, but in an occult way, she already achieves the victory over death. So there she's to some extent recollecting her past, seeing this descent of the Godhead of love into her, seeing the fact that death is the shadow that she has to wrestle with, fight with, and that's her destiny. And even before the day begins, in that inner recollection, she overcomes death. And that's how this canto ends. And the passage that we found, that we read, is really, in a sense, her connecting with her higher self. And then the canto ends. A Godhead stands behind the brute machine. This truth broke in a triumph of fire. A victory was won for God in man. The deity revealed its hidden face. The great world mother now in her arose. A living choice reversed fate's cold dead turn. Affirmed the spirit's tread on circumstance. Pressed back the senseless, dire, revolving wheel. And stopped the mute march of necessity. A flaming warrior from the eternal peaks, empowered to force the door denied and closed, smote from death's visage its dumb absolute, and burst the bounds of consciousness and time. So this is the unknowable that we are being told about. This is the power that changes the law of the cosmos, the cosmic law, which he's calling the iron law. The term iron law is used actually for death. Death is the iron law. Everything ultimately comes down to the fact that whatever consciousness is doing, it's temporary and it's doomed to death. This is how death talks to Buddha. He says in the Buddha's meditation, it says how dare you even refuse to respond to me? The earth belongs to me. Everything here belongs to me. Anything that is born, it's born by my grace. I'm going to take it back into my grasp. So how dare you sort of defy me? Who is your witness that you can choose to stand against me. And he touches the earth. The earth is the witness. In other words, in the earth itself is a power that's greater than death. And this is what is happening over here. This is what's happening in the sense that Savitri is breaking the iron law, breaking the bounds of consciousness and time, which is the cosmic law, conditions. The cosmic conditions are broken, opening up a new kind of consciousness and a new kind of time. The oneness of the timeless and the temporal.
Two thoughts come to mind. All of this is after what happens in the book of yoga,
Yeah.
right? And also it brings to mind Mother's report on Supramental Day.
Yeah.
She stood before the door
It
with a
does.
golden hammer.
It sounds very much like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in Savitri which the mother herself says that it's Sri Aurobindo's foreknowledge of what is to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. A flaming warrior from the eternal peaks, empowered to force the door denied and closed, smote from death's visage its dumb absolute and burst the bounds of consciousness and time.
And the lid, breaking the lid.
Yeah.
Also, as you said, no, that disciples, question sometimes makes it descend.
Yeah.
That Sri Aurobindo's foreknowledge made it happen.
Right.
In
I
other
could say
words.
that, yeah. So this is all this in a sense following the legend and Savitri's avatarhood. It's before, it's related to the fact of her young adulthood and her meeting with Satyavan and becoming the instrument of love conquering death. And now we'll move to after she meets Satyavan and comes back. So it's like a flashback, right? She comes back, and she comes back to her father's kingdom with the news that she's met her, better half or second half or whatever, and that she's going to get married to him. And Narad is there, and he springs the bad news, which is what he's reputed to do. So he says, oh no, this man is going to die in a year's time. And of course the mother is immediately extremely distraught and says, take back your word. Cannot.
But first he says, this man is the right choice.
He says
the perfect choice.
Yeah, he says that, he repeats that, that's his sort of like.
There's no other for her.
Yeah, right.
But.
Yeah. So, he goes into this long debate with the mother and with Ashwapati, in which, at the end of which he basically is saying, this is destiny, this has to happen, and only she knows how to deal with it, basically. You can't stop her from doing this. So we move to Book 6, Canto 2,
What page?
460. And some of these passages apparently were written by Sri Aurobindo. Some of these are the last additions that Sri Aurobindo made. Some of these passages, and they really have prophecy to them. They are the prophetic lines. 460 towards the middle. In this enormous world, let me make sure. Yeah. In this enormous world, standing apart in the mightiness of her silent spirit's will, in the passion of her soul of sacrifice, her lonely strength facing the universe, affronting fate, asks not man's help nor God's. We've already been given a prelude of this, that the power is inside her. She's not looking for some gods, she's not looking for men. Ask not man's help nor God's. Sometimes one life is charged with earth's destiny. It cries not for succor from the time-bound powers. Alone she is equal to her mighty task. Intervene not in a strife too great for thee. He's telling her mother, don't interfere in this. It's not your cup of tea, basically. Intervene not in a strife too great for thee, a struggle too deep for mortal thought to sound. Its question to this nature's rigid bounds, when the soul fronts nude of garbs the infinite. Its too vast theme of a lonely mortal will, pacing the silence of eternity. As a star uncompanioned moves in heaven, unastonished by the immensities of space, traveling infinity by its own light, the great are strongest when they stand alone. A God-given might of being is their force, a ray from self's solitude of life the guide. The soul that can live alone with itself meets God. Its lonely universe is their rendezvous. A day may come when she must stand unhelped on a dangerous brink of the world's doom and hers, carrying the world's future on her lonely breast, carrying the human hope in a heart-left soul to conquer or fail on a last desperate verge. Alone with death and close to extinction's edge, a single greatness in that last dire scene, she must cross alone a perilous bridge in time and reach an apex of world destiny where all is won or all is lost for man. In that tremendous silence, lone and lost, of a deciding hour in the world's fate, in her soul's climbing beyond mortal time, when she stands soul with death or soul with God, apart upon a silent, desperate brink, alone with herself and death and destiny, as on some verge between time and timelessness, when being must end or life rebuild its base, alone she must conquer or alone must fall. No human aid can reach her in that hour. No armored God stands shining at her side. Cry not to heaven, for she alone can save. For this the silent force came mission down. In her the conscious will took human shape. She only can save herself and save the world. So this very, very powerful, and these prophetic lines, they're some of the last lines Sri Aurobindo wrote, because he knew that it's going to rest on the mother. Yeah.
It's about time for the break.
Yeah,
It still rests on the mother.
it does. Because these lines are so, in a sense, prescient of our time right now.
When you say rest on the mother, means the mother will explain to those lines.
No, means it's her will that has to act. As he's saying, destiny is sometimes carried by a special soul. So in this case, again, we are talking of a legend and a symbol. He's talking about Savitri. That's the thing about so many layers to this work. He's talking about Savitri at a certain point in time that had to challenge death, and only she could do it. Nobody else can do it. So in the story, Narad is telling Savitri's mother, don't call to the gods and don't think that you or anybody else can change that fate. Only Savitri has to win or lose. Don't interfere in her life, because she's charged with a certain kind of a destiny which is greater than individual destiny. It's like being done for fate itself, for the earth itself.
It also brings to mind Mother saying that Sri Aurobindo's passing
Yeah.
were for reasons that, or what she say, so, I don't remember the term, but she basically said that he left at that time for a very important reason.
Yeah.
And in part we're reading here is that she had to go on alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I wonder if she caught it.
Yeah.
You know, before he left, I wonder if she saw these lines and understood what he was saying.
Yeah. It's possible. I don't know.
Well, she also said he caught her off guard.
Yeah.
He tricked her.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
She says even stronger words.
I know.
Yeah.
What did she say?
She says it was a blow to the nose.
Only the divine can hide a truth from the divine.
But I think later she said in Agenda, right, that she was in touch with Sri Aurobindo
Yeah.
in subtle words.
Oh yeah.
And Sri Aurobindo used to guide her
Yeah.
continuously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
I was just reading George Brecken yesterday, and he talks about the death.
Yeah.
When Sri Aurobindo left,
Yeah.
and he said that Sri Aurobindo had realized that there was some kind of blockage
Yeah.
in their effort to
Yeah.
create the transformation. And George says we don't know what that blockage was.
Yeah.
Sri Aurobindo took this deliberate
Yeah.
movement into death.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, actually, again, Nirod Baran writes something about it too, similar to what you're saying. He says Sri Aurobindo told him towards the end of his life, he asked, aren't you using your force to cure yourself?
right.
And he doesn't reply. He keeps silent. And then later, I think the same day or after some time, it seems he said, sometimes a small compromise can mean a big victory for the divine. And Nirod Baran says that the message he got from that is that he considered his giving up his life that small compromise.
George's implication is that Sri Aurobindo went there to do something to unblock it.
Oh, that's also possible. That's also possible. So then there's the other part where both of them have talked. Mother has talked about the fact that they talked among each other and decided that one of them had to leave. And the mother immediately said, in that case, I will leave. And Sri Aurobindo said, no, you have to remain. Because he said, you're physically stronger, more capable of the transformation than me.
That's love. Deciding who's going.
Sometimes I think if it is so hard for Sri Aurobindo and mother, how are we going to do it?
Because
We can't. Yeah, exactly. We can't. I mean, it's really like that's exactly what we read, right? It's a higher power that has to transform us.
Surrender, surrender. But then receptivity. But then we are not able to receive. They are ready to give it to us, but it's human limitation to receive also, right? So
It's a progress.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
But is it because the Shakti's nature is to hold that transformation
Yeah.
in itself is like the nature Shakti.
It's true. That's why we are talking about Shakti avatar. Why is the Shakti avatar important? For that reason, that it works from inside. It's really the Shakti is present even in the cells, you know. So in that sense, there is something special about the mother that can achieve the transformation down to the body.